This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. This is a conversation for the ages featuring one of extreme metal's originals, Michael Amott from Arch Enemy, Carcass and Spiritual Beggars. The catalyst for the conversation is an Australian tour from Arch Enemy, but I won't read out the dates because I've got bugger all listeners in my home country. If you live here, please just go to Gig Guides. The venues and the dates are easily found. The important thing is, throughout this chat here, we discuss Carcass. We dive deep. We go way back in time. Necroticism, Heartwork. We talk all about those albums. We discuss why he left Carcass. What it was like working with Bill Steer, one of the greatest extreme metal guitarists ever. I mean, these two together. Fair dinkum. How good are they? Candlemass. I bet you didn't know that he played guitar on a Candlemass album, but he did. His memories of Gigantour across Australia in 2006. Frederick Nordstrom, the Uber producer, the Gothenburg Uber producer from the 90s and early 2000s. So many topics we cover here. Michael's a fantastic fella. If I had more time, because it sounded like Michael had more time to give me, I would have taken it, but the conversation took place at 4:30 p.m. And I've got two kids, you see, and I could hear them running amok with their cousin in the background, and I thought I'd better get back out to them. But needless to say, this is still a conversation that is well worth your while, particularly if you don't understand or aren't aware of Michael's contribution to extreme metal. It's all here throughout this chat. I don't have a song to share with you because please just go across to Spotify and check out those two albums, Necroticism and Heartwork, and of course a new one from Arch Enemy, Deceivers. It's all good stuff, but those early things that he did with Carcass, they really laid the groundwork, and I talk about why in this episode. So let's get to it. Here he is, Michael Amott. Michael, I can hear you. How are you?
Cool. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Yeah, great. Thanks for taking the time to join me, mate. I know it's you're on the road and these sort of things come up, and they might feel like an obligation. They're really good for fans like me, though.
Hopefully, not just you. There's some people listening as well at some point, or reading, or whatever this is for.
Listening, yeah. I got a podcast, so it'll
great, awesome.
YouTube, all the rest of it. Yeah, it's you're one of those guitarists. I've got to say that I've been looking forward to having a chat for some time. So that's awesome too.
Uh-oh. There we go.
I like that. I haven't had that response before. Actually, I had it once. Once when I'm a bassist, if you can see me behind me. So I play guitar too. But I'll out myself now. I'm an old Carcass fan. So there you go.
Uh-oh. Here we go. No, that's cool, man. I appreciate it. I'm just messing with you.
No, that's cool.
Great.
We'll get to that because I got a few questions. I grilled Bill Steer, so you're next. It's coming.
Oh shit.
Well, let's kick off on that now. Why don't we do that now? I've long described Necroticism as being a perfect album. And I feel like Heartwork laid the platform for what heavy metal would sound like for decades. Now, when you were writing those albums, particularly Heartwork, did you feel like as though you were doing something that would be described as revolutionary?
Yes.
Great. Right. So it did feel like as though you were doing something that was going to...
I mean, it's a long time ago. So I have to say that. But I do remember that it felt like the next step.
That's exactly what it was, particularly with Heartwork, because you can't. All modern metal has elements of that album.
The sound. Are you hearing me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, mate.
It kind of got a bit weird. The sound. Did you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. There might be, I hope, I've got NBN, which is our version of fiber optic internet here, so I shouldn't have too many issues on my... I'm going to do a speed test quickly just to see if there's some sort of an issue, but hopefully there isn't. There might be a bit of an issue with mine. Oh, no, it's creeping up now. Yeah, it's going up to 80, 90 meg. Yeah, there you go. It just took a bit. All the kids, it's 4:30 here, you see, or 4:50, so all the kids are coming home from school. You know what they're like. They get on their Xboxes and stuff. But if you can hear me now, I mean, I just wanted to give you that feedback that, I mean, you recorded it. I understand you're in Arch Enemy and you've been in Arch Enemy for the majority of your career, but those Carcass albums, they laid the platform. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. It was a huge deal. I mean, especially looking back at the time, we were just going through it, and I was in the band for 3 years, I think. I did 2 albums and an EP with them, and a lot of touring and stuff like that. So that was in the early 90s. Really cool experience. And, I have them, I thank them every time I meet them and we have a few drinks. I always thank them for the opportunity because it was like, I mean, they needed a guitar player but it changed my life really as well. And I got the possibility to get involved in the songwriting, which was very cool of them, so it was, and to go back to you asked if we felt that it was a revolutionary step or something like you said on artwork, right? I think that was a band. It was a kind of a progressive band, actually. Carcass. I think that was the definition of true progressive metal because every album was completely different. There was a real progression there. So there was, the first album, and then the second album, and the third album I was on, and then the fourth album, Artwork. I mean, those albums all sound really, really different. There's a huge leap between every album, right? Yeah, and they're all good in their own way, I think. So, I mean, I remember writing when we were jamming on the Artwork stuff, and I remember some things being totally new, like I presented like a little riff to Bill, the harmony part. Is it this Mortal Coil? With this harmony part. So and then Bill added the harmony on there, and we had this galloping drum beat, and it was just like, I mean, I remember thinking at the time, and this is a strong memory I have, is that I've never heard anything like this in death metal before. Like it's mixing, it's blending in like Iron Maiden type harmony and galloping beats and that had never been done before, to my knowledge. And I was pretty deep into the death metal scene at that time. So I remember thinking like, this is going to be weird. Maybe people are going to hate it because it's not what people consider death metal, So, but then I didn't really think more. I don't think we were thinking that I can't speak for the others, but I think, we were just doing our thing, and it was kind of very free and open spirit in the band at the time. It was like very, it was very forward thinking in a way. It was great. One of the best experiences,
Why did you end up leaving Carcass? What was the catalyst for your exit?
A few different things. It all led up to that point, I guess. And led me to that point. And I think one of them was that I wanted to do my own. I had contributed a lot more ideas to Artwork than on the previous album, of course. But I don't know. I just felt like I wanted more control of the music, how it was going to be, the end up being, I wanted to be more in control, I guess. Wanted to run my own thing, which is what I've done since then.
You mentioned progressive, and yeah, absolutely. That's such a, people think of progressive and they think of Yes and Jethro Tull and all that sort of stuff. But really, when progressive is just constant change and usually forward change, it's not repeating yourself and writing a No Prayer for the Dying, this sort of thing. But you and Bill, you're so progressive that you almost progress right out of heavy metal and into hard, like this bluesy style hard rock. You have this inclination toward rock and blues, both of you do. So he did Firebird, and you, of course, you've got Spiritual Beggars. Now, is it conceivable to suggest that if Carcass kept going, that the band may have evolved into a more bluesy enterprise?
I don't think so, but I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there for the rest of it, I wasn't there for what happened after Artwork, And then, but I've heard I've heard most of Swan Song album, and I think it has a bit more of a hard rock feel to it, from what I remember.
They kept going.
I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I would say it's not quite the masterpiece that Heartwork is, but it sort of hinted where the band would go. But fans by then, as you probably recall, fans were really nasty toward it. I mean, spirited toward it. You know, the necroticism fans and the decanting fans. These people didn't understand.
But isn't it always like it's always like that though? You know, it's like I see that with Arch Enemy as well. We put out a new record, or when we brought in a new singer or something like that, and they say, "No, bring back the old. We want it just the way it was." And then, and then by the time then a few years pass, and then the album that people complained about, that is now the legendary album. So it's like you can't really. I don't really spend a lot of time listening to those kind of voices at all, really, because it's. I think everybody falls. It goes for everybody, right? We fall in love with a band or a musician. The style, the music, at a certain age, there's that window where you get into something, and then you want them to stay exactly the same, just like that forever. And that's not really possible because we're all human beings, and we grow and we develop and we move forward, hopefully.
Yeah. I distinctly recall, I remember the moment when it was announced that Angela was recruited as the band's vocalist. And the truth is, none of us knew, meaning us fans. We didn't even know that it was a female vocalist that was in the band based on the quality of the album. You were the first band, if I'm not mistaken, to recruit a female vocalist in extreme metal. I'm sure there are other lesser lights, but I'm talking about a touring band with an international fan base that's selling tens of thousands of albums. Was that was the fact that Angela, was it strictly that she was the most appropriate person, vocal and as a vocalist and as a person, that brought her into the band, or were you actually thinking along the lines of, this is going to change the game, let's bring in a female vocalist?
It was the former more than the latter, for sure. I mean, because it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't a proven formula. It had not really been done before at that level. Nobody thought it was a good idea, really. From that point of view, it was just like you had this ripping voice and just like a really cool charisma on stage, and it was just like, yeah. And she was a total death metal freak, so she'd grown up on. Her music roots were really like, Carcass, Morbid Angel, Bolt Thrower, those kind of things, really, really heavy stuff. And Death, of course. Yeah. So, she was just really into it. And, she was a perfect fit at that time, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Look, you are.
And then everything else that came on top of that was just like the media attention. And that was something that we hadn't really. We thought it was okay. This is going to be eye catching, of course. This is going to be cool. It's going to set us apart. But we weren't prepared for what was, that kind of reaction that we got, which was insane. So it was, it was something new for sure.
I saw you guys in 2006 on Gigantour. Remember that when you came to Australia with Megadeth?
Of course, yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
yeah. What are your memories of that show, the Brisbane show? I'll actually narrow your focus onto the Brisbane show. I thought it was fantastic.
The Brisbane show. Yeah, it was with Soulfly was there.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I remember staying at. I remember everything. I mean, that was a nice little tour. We'd done the Megadeth. It was with Megadeth, Gigantour, right?
Yeah.
So we done that in the States first, and then we followed on and did it in Australia as well. And Soulfly joined, and I really enjoyed the Soulfly set as well. I remember.
It was one of the few festivals that I've been to where I didn't think that there was a shit band on, to be honest, in terms of the performance. Every band that was on put in an enormous performance.
Who else played?
Caliban. I remember Caliban were the first band. They're a German band, I think.
Caliban, right. I've forgotten about that they were there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to dive into my.
Never mind.
I remember it really well, and I just remember your performance. There was Caliban, Arch Enemy, Megadeth, and Soulfly. That was it. So there was really, it wasn't really a festival per se, but all three really big bands for the time. And Caliban, who were up and coming, who sort of continued on a little bit, but just not quite got up to the status you guys have. But that's all right. That shit happens, But there's another band that you've been a part of that I think gets glossed over in your history when you get asked questions. Because I've listened to a few of your interviews, but Were you a member of Candlemass, or were you just doing that album Dactylus Glomerata back in 1997?
Oh God, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I remember Leif Edling, the mastermind, the songwriter and founder of that band, of Candlemass. He called me. He was actually working for Swedish radio. He was working. He was like doing interviews for the music program, stuff like that. So he'd interviewed me a couple of times for another band I was doing at the time. Back then, and then in the mid-90s or whatever. And then he actually called me one day and asked if I wanted to play with him on his album. And he knew I was a big Candlemass fan, and from back in the 80s, I used to follow them around and see them live. And I was a big, really into that sound that they had back then. And I think the Candlemass had been sort of disbanded for a while, for a few years at that point. And he had another band called Abstract Algebra at the time. And I think this was supposed to be the second Abstract Algebra album. And they'd recorded it once and failed at that or something like that. Something had happened. He wasn't happy with the production. He wanted to redo the songs, add a few more new songs, and re-record the whole thing. And he wanted me to play guitar on it. So, of course, that was super exciting. So it's an offer I couldn't refuse, actually. So that's one of the few times I've actually gone in and played somebody else's music, apart from Carcass, of course. Other than that, I've always done my own thing, really. So I'm never being like a session guy or anything like that. But this was I think, he wanted my style and he wanted my sound, and that's what he got. So.
Did he?
So I don't know. We never played live with that lineup, particular lineup. So I wouldn't say I was ever in Candlemass, no. But I did play on that record. That's true.
Yeah, it's out there. Yeah, killer sound. It's all there. It's Candlemass's sound has evolved through that period. There's no question. But was there discussions? You get to your fifth or sixth beer, this sort of thing. Was there discussions between you and Leffy about maybe this partnership continuing on, where you're actually writing material for Candlemass?
No, I mean, he writes all the music and lyrics in that band, and it's done on every album, I believe. So it was not a very collaborative effort in that way, It was more just like, play like this. No, not like that, more like this. So it was like, I was just doing what he told me to do, which is fine. I enjoyed it, It was just very brief. I just recorded guitars. I think I was up in Stockholm for a couple of weekends and drank a lot, partied a lot. We were both single at the time and had a lot of fun. And then, hung over in the studio recording guitars.
That's the best way to do it.
I enjoyed it. It was fun. Yeah, it was great. It was really, really cool. Yeah. I've lost touch with him, though, so I haven't talked to him in a long time. But, I'm still a big fan. Yeah, he's great. He's really great. We were pretty close there for a while. And I continued to, he'd come down and visit me, or I went up and visited him, and stuff like that. So we hung out in a private, sort of way, just chilling and partying or whatever. It was a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't really collaborate in that way musically with people, as far as I know. I could be wrong. But that's what makes him great. He's one of the most underrated Swedish musicians, I think, or songwriters, I should call him, maybe, in the metal scene, because he's just created so many great songs and melodies and stuff like that, and lyrics too. Very great musician.
Yeah, I think Marcus did a good job with him. Marcus Shadell did a great job with him for a bit. But yeah, to your point, he sort of goes through the musicians, but that's because he's got a vision and he's trying to stick to it and find people that'll help him execute on that. And so be it. But here's another fella from your past that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. But I was talking to Bjorn from In Flames just this morning, and I asked him the same question, about his impressions.
You're talking to everybody, aren't you? You talk to everybody.
Yeah, I try. You should see my bucket list, Michael. It's enormous. You've been on it for a long time. I write books about what I'm doing here too. So you'll be in the next one. So it'll be good. Don't worry. But I love talking to you guys because it's just been a lifelong hobby, passion. This sort of thing. I'm not really. It might sound weird. I'm not really a metalhead though. I don't look at. You can probably see my photo and stuff. I don't look like it either. I just get really interested in talking and diving into the early 90s. Remember the 90s when we didn't have the internet? And you had to buy the albums and you had to focus on the albums and read the liner notes and buy the magazines. That's where I come from. That
Yeah,
sort
of
of
course.
thing.
Yeah.
But the question was Frederick Nordstrom. Okay, so Bjorn did a lot of work with him early on, and you guys did 4 albums. Arch Enemy did 4 albums with Frederick. So how important was he to the band's evolution?
Really great. We did the first 3, of course, and then the Wages of Sin was recorded with him, but then mixed with Andy Sneap in the UK. Then we went back and did actually a 5th record with Rise of the Tyrant with Frederick as well. So, and then I had another band called Spiritual Beggars, and we did like 4 or 5 albums with them as well. So I've done a lot of I've done a lot of albums with. I've done 10 records with Frederick over the years. But it's become less and less. We haven't worked together for a long time. I did go back and do a couple of tracks for a project called that I called Black Earth. That we did. It was like the old Arch Enemy lineup from the 90s, and we did 2 new songs for Japan for a tour that we're doing in 2019. That was fun. I mixed those with Frederick in his new studio. Frederick is a really interesting guy. You know, he was just. He just kind of came up on my radar, you know, like for everybody else, you know, with Slaughter of the Soul and By at the Gates and the early In Flames stuff, especially In Flames, like the Subterranean, I think it was Subterranean, like a mini album.
Yeah, the EP.
Yeah, and I snatched the drummer from the 2 good songs on that. That's Daniel Erlandsson on drums there. So I snatched that. I picked up him, and then he was only like 18 or 19, and then where the hell is this recorder? I checked, oh shit, it's that studio in Gothenburg. I want to go there. I want to record there. So that's what we did, Black Earth. And I remember showing up, you know, for recording Black Earth with Daniel, and we tracked those. That album, first album, Black Earth, was recorded and mixed, I think, in 9 days. Completed. So that was like a very fast thing. But it was great. You know, it's just he was at the time, he was a very wild guy, you know. We drank a lot. We used to record a lot and then go out and eat and party and then go up at the studio whenever. I didn't have money for a hotel or anything. I just slept on the couch in the studio or stuff like, you know, it was just like, you know, that kind of vibe, you know. It was early days, humble beginnings. But it was great, you know, and I felt there was a lot of excitement. You know, I had been away from extreme metal after quitting Carcass in 93. So for me to come back in 95, at the end of 95, I was recording this. And it felt like forever because I was still pretty young at the time. So it felt like I'd been away from it forever. And it was just super exciting to get back into that atmosphere and to, you know, Frederick really helped me shape that sound and put it together, you know. So he was a really important person for Arch Enemy in the beginning. We went back there a few times. So. But then, like everything, you know, we're recording relationships. You know, the relationship between producer and engineer and band. You know, it gets after a while. You think, like, maybe we should try something new. Or, you know, we've done this. We're repeating ourselves because we found a formula in a way. You know, and then as the band, you're trying to break away from the formulas sometimes. You know, and you want to try something a little bit different and see what that sounds like. So that's when we started working with Andy Sneap in the UK. And then we did a few records with him, and then we moved on to other people and stuff like that. We just basically produce the sluts.
Oh, well, it's worked. There's no doubt about that. You're many albums in. And look, given so you started the band way back in the day in the mid-90s. So I understand, I could be wrong here, okay, but just listening to your interviews, it sounds like as though you started the band as a let's just see what happens type of deal. But because realistically, I like Spiritual Beggars, great band. Realistically, you were well down the classic rock path. You were 2 albums in and your third one was on the horizon when Arch Enemy came out. So was Spiritual Beggars meant to be the band that you were potentially going to focus on? And does Arch Enemy a bit of a supergroup? I know it's been described as a supergroup, not by you, I don't think, but just a side project thing. But then it just started to take off and you went, well, this is just where I'm going now.
Well, you know, when we did the Black Earth album, the first Arch Enemy album, it was very much a case of just like, let's see where this goes. And not really much happened in the beginning, to be honest. We put it out on a very underground label. There was not a lot of, you know, got some good reviews here and there, but not a lot happened really. You know, there wasn't like a big wave of success or anything.
Hmm.
Apart from Japan, they really picked up on it, and they got out licensed to a Japanese label, and they got put out there, and they put like a big push behind it, and it did very, very well. And we actually went over there and toured over there on the first album, and then that kind of energized us and gave us the motivation to make the second album. And then we went back and toured in Japan again, and I was still just playing like a handful of shows in Europe. Nobody really talking much about Arch Enemy. We couldn't get tours really. Nobody wanted us. And then, because this was the time, it was kind of a bad time for metal as well. It's all about rap metal, industrial metal. Those kind of fusions were going on at the time, That's all gone now, of course. But, in new metal and all that kind of stuff. There's more natural, like people who do interviews, I remember for America or Europe, and they'd ask why we have so many guitar solos. And it would have been more natural if we had like a guy on the turntable or something, you know what I mean? So it's just it's kind of a weird time. So I just followed I followed on from what I'd done previously in Carcass, which is I stayed within that format maybe, but I even more melodic maybe in the guitar side of things, and even more solos and stuff like that. So I just followed what I like, I don't really. Definitely didn't see Arch Enemy becoming like a big career band or anything like that at the time. It was just more, just really being into it, loving that kind of music and having fun making it. Then I was still doing Spiritual Beggars, of course, at the time. That was the bigger band at the time. We were touring with bands like Monster Magnet, Queens of the Stone Age. We did a lot of shows at Iron Maiden. So it was happening for that band, there was a lot going on with Spiritual Beggars as well. And for a few years there, I was flip-flopping between the two bands. I was doing one. If I wasn't in the studio with one band, I was on tour with the other, or vice versa. And, so it's just crazy. I was always busy doing something about those years. It was a lot of fun, It's not sustainable in the long run, I guess. So, at the end of then the singer of Spiritual Beggars quit and things kind of slowed down. We continued on to make records, but it kind of like didn't continue on such an intense schedule. And then things started picking up with Arch Enemy, and there was more interest in that. So I just kind of, so I just followed that path, and became more serious with Arch Enemy. Suddenly, when Angela joined the band, it became more of a serious thing, because then I thought she was from Germany, and she was from another country, and it's like, oh shit, she's committing to being in this band. We better make something of it, Go take this seriously now. We started booking tours all around the world, and of course, with the impact that the Wages of Sin album had, it just blew up, and it became a very, very. It was a huge step up for us, and we got to tour more in the States and around Europe, and getting festivals, and of course, keeping the Japanese market as well. That actually got bigger, expanded, but that's when it really. I would say that's around the time that Arch Enemy became the touring monster that we became and still are.
You've been described as the elder statesman of Swedish heavy metal, which is a huge.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's whole generations before me of metal people, Ingvar Malmsteen and the Europe guys, and there's a lot of hard rock and metal people that came before me from Sweden.
Oh, look, no question about that. But the extreme metal thing, I mean, you're in Carcass, Carcass almost didn't write the book, but they certainly wrote the first few chapters. And this is a couple of years before Slaughter of the Soul came out, which is really the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And then everything sort of flowed on after that. But if Heartwork didn't happen, I've spoken to all these people and I've asked the questions, and nobody's denied that Heartwork is really the genesis of what came after. That started there. So do you feel, I mean, obviously you don't because of your response to the way that's framed my point there, but can you understand why some people will see you in that light though?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I do in a way, but it's like a big... but I enjoy. It's fun to look back, but I try not to do too much because I think that's damaging to. I'm more of a looking forward person, living in the moment, and also thinking about the next tour or the next album. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. I'm looking forward to going to Australia. next week, so I'm super excited about that. So, it's just, I've really been very fortunate. I'm of the generation that I am. I'm very fortunate that I'm still super active. I'm more active than I've ever been. I get booked more. I get to play more shows than I've ever done in my life, and this far into my career, and then it's 27 years into Arch Enemy's career. So it's super exciting, maybe 28 years soon of Arch Enemy. So it's like, it's not really, I never expected that, but it's just the way things have turned out. I think for some people, some artists, some musicians, of course, their heyday was maybe in the early 90s or the mid 90s. And then since then sort of things calmed down a lot and not a lot happened, or big things didn't really happen for them. So then you have the time, and maybe if you go back into a normal job, a normal routine, you have more time. You have a different perspective, if you know what I mean. You can think more about what was going on there and how exciting that was. And that was the time of their lives or whatever, But I'm just kind of like, there's so many things that happen all the time in my life that I just I don't have room for all the memories, I just move on to the next thing in a way, I mean, it's, I've been very fortunate to have this longevity, Of course, it could all end tomorrow, but who knows? I've enjoyed it so far.
Yeah, and what a career. And another aspect of your career, the one person that seems to have been able to get Charlie D'Angelo to bloody settle down and play in the one band for longer than one or two albums. How did you manage that? Because he's famous for being in up to 17 bands at one time.
Yeah, no, he's calmed down a lot with that, I think. But I think he was just really, at a certain point in the 90s, he was very eager to play with more people, try different things and stuff like that. But like I said, around the Way to the Sin album, we just made a big commitment, all of us. And we said, this is it. No more stand-in, no more fill-in bass players, no more, you're either in or you're out, you know what I mean? And we made that decision, and he stood by that, So Arch Enemy's been his priority band since then. And for all of us, it has been.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it was really interesting to see that. When I spoke to Elisa a couple of years ago, I asked her what it was like playing with him, because being a bassist, he's one of the guys, as you know. He was in Merciful Fate and King Diamond, and his bass lines are audible in a genre where they're often not. You can hear him playing, and you can certainly hear it live. That's where it shines. But the live shows too. So you mentioned that you're coming down to Australia next week, I think, or the week after. So you're in Indonesia, I think, at the moment. How does Australia stack up against the rest of the world in terms of fan reaction and response?
To the new album? Oh, it's been phenomenal. I mean, it really has. It's a very different way of putting out this new album. Was the fact that the Deceivers album actually came out in August last year, but upon the day of release, we already had 6 new singles out. We had 6 songs off the album out as videos, as streaming singles, and all that. So you could argue that people had already heard half the album, but also all those 6 songs were extremely popular with the fans, and we could play them live, and we could really shine a spotlight on each individual on those singles, and really. They really made their way into the live set list and the show and stuff like that. So very cool. I mean, it's just been an exciting time, it's adapt or die really nowadays, isn't it? Really, it keeps changing. Every time we put out a new album, it seems the landscape has changed just a little bit, how you do things nowadays and how to get the music into the ears and hearts of the fans, it keeps changing. And we have a great team, that support us working on that. It's lucky to have great management, great label, and stuff like that, Because I don't really keep track of all of that. I don't know. I'm more focused on the creative part. And then, of course, I'm involved on the business end to a certain degree. But really, my heart lies in creating the music. And I'm also involved in the production of it. And then also like the merchandise and the designing stuff and things like that. That's really what I'm into, what I really enjoy. The business part of it is just with the strategies and the release strategies and stuff like that. It's just not something that I'm like. It's great to see other people do that and see it all come together.
Yeah, well, you can fall down a deep hole with that one there if it's not your bag, because it's that social media marketing side of it for bands. Unless you've got the expertise that evidently Century Media and the big labels like that and Nuclear Blast can bring to the table, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars potentially for no reason if it's not targeted appropriately and the like. I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm glad you said that actually, that you focus on what you know and what your absolute strength is, because with a label like that behind you, it's just. I see.
Yeah, and it's also the time. I don't want to kill my inspiration. I'm still living my I mean, in many ways, I'm still living my teenage fantasy. You know what I mean? I just walk around in a world full of my head in the clouds and we're full of riffs and metal. I just think about stuff like that all day, and that's my job, and that's what people want me to do. So I'm very, very fortunate in that way. My job is to wake up, have coffee, and start playing guitar, and that's great. I play guitar for hours each and every day. So, I mean, how cool is that? That's kind of like unbelievable, really, isn't it?
It's the
I
dream.
never thought that would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought that would be. I always thought that the music when I started playing this music, and the music that I was interested in, that I wanted to play when I was a young teenager, I never saw that as something as a potential career or something like that, because there was that kind of music that I was interested in playing was not popular. A lot of times there was not even albums out with this kind of music. It was before there were records. It would just be tapes and demos and live tapes and underground rehearsal tapes of bands from all over the world playing this extreme music. And that's what I was interested in. And then, of course, there were some established bands, but those was like small. You go and see these bands, you think they were big, but there was nobody there. There'd be 100 people there to see what you thought was an established band. And it kind of made you realize, like, shit, this music isn't that popular. It's like not a lot of people are into it. And but that all changed, in the 90s. So it all kind of grew, and it became more of a business, and it became more of I wouldn't say mainstream, but there was a way to market and sort of spread that kind of underground metal, and it became more of a scene for it. The scene became so much bigger, and then I guess I saw that happening when I was in Carcass in the early 90s. It just kind of like suddenly there would be thousands of people at certain shows. It's like, wow, this is really something. It's just how did this happen? How can so many people be in one spot at the same time, really enjoying this level of noise, this kind of level of extremity that we were doing? It was really interesting, and to see it grow like that. And of course, now it's nowadays, maybe people have expectations. Maybe if you start a band now, if you're starting out now, that it's going to leave some of that is going to be like but you know what I mean? I had zero expectations of anything like this happening in my life. I always thought I would have a normal job, and then I'll do music as a hobby, But then it turned out I've actually never been employed in my whole life, properly employed. So I've always done this. So which is kind of crazy. I never expected that.
God had a plan for you from day one, from the sounds of things.
or Satan.
More the devil. There you go. Hey, I will ask you this question. Sorry, have we got time for one more question, or if you got to head off, no dramas. But, Elisa. Okay, she's a marketer's dream. I mean, she looks like she should be on the front of Cosmopolitan or Clio magazine. Those magazines. But she's a talent. She's the real deal. There's no question about that. So was she the only one you considered to replace Angela? Because they were bloody big shoes to fill, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. But you know what? She brought her own shoes, which was cool. I thought, she just kind of established herself fairly quickly as the new singer of the band. And I think, she's very talented and very creative and very serious about her craft. And I have a lot of respect for her. And I think we're very different, people. There are very different people in this band. We're all different in our own way, but what we do have in common is that we respect each other and what we each bring to the table, to make Arch Enemy work. Because I think without, the wheels would fall off. It was all down to one person. But it's actually not. It's a lot of people. There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than people, might know. You know, a lot of people think I'm like the sole mastermind behind the whole thing. Maybe some people think that. That's not true. You know, there's like, for example, Daniel is a huge part of the band, much more than just a drummer, which is a phenomenal drummer. He's a world-class drummer, but he's also responsible for a lot of other things in the group, you know, that creatively and on a more sort of administrative level. So, I mean, he's a great asset, and they all are, you know, every member is great. And like when it comes to the live set list, you know, that's Charlie's, he does the live set list. So if people have any complaints, go to him. Go.
But yeah, throw Uzi on stage left. I think he is, isn't he, from memory? Yeah, throw your mid-strength beers at the festivals toward him. Not really, but yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, well, I'll let you head off, mate. It's been wonderful to finally chat with you. I know you speak to hundreds of people through the year, and you got to press the flesh and do all these sort of things. But it is meaningful that you take the time out to have these sorts of chats and you share your perspective on things. Because I do, at my age now, man, I'm really intensely interested in the opinions that you have, and the reasons why you started, why you keep going, and you've eloquently answered what the future holds there throughout the conversation. So you're one of the guys, Michael. There's no doubt about it. Without you, metal doesn't sound the way it does today, and I want you to know that. You know that metal did evolve, and it evolved through you're one of the people whose fingers it evolved through. So there you go.
That's amazing, isn't it? Thank you. Very kind words. You can just keep talking stuff like that. I'm feeling great about myself right now.
Not everybody gets this, believe me. Sometimes I'm not critical because it's not my job to do that, but I do. When feedback and praise is worthy, and I know the problem is, Michael, and you, God help me here, the metal media is so lowbrow. I'm actually a journalist, okay, so that's what I do during the day-to-day. And so I'm trained is what I'm saying, and trying to get to the bottom of things is what I like to do. But a lot of the metal, I do listen to some of your interviews and I'm like, have they even done any preparation for this? Do they know about your career and your history and what you've done and when you started, and the fact that you grew up in two cultures effectively, even though it's all sort of pan-European these days? It's, do they understand the perspective from where you're coming from? I just don't feel like people do the hard work, to be honest with you. So I try to make that my point of difference when I'm having a conversation.
In some ways, I understand what you mean, but my career has been so long that I don't really blame if somebody's like in their early 20s and I'm doing an interview. I'm fine to talk about the new Arch Enemy album, or the last 10 years what we've done. But then it goes so deep. Sometimes I feel like I'm Dracula or somebody, I've just kind of been there forever, throughout the eons, and I've just done so many different things for such a long amount of time that I just don't really. So the fact that I'm still kind of current and people still enjoy, people still buy tickets and want to hear what I've got to say musically is just unbelievable to me, and I'm enjoying that as well, So I can just enjoy every kind of chat that I have with people, I don't really feel that everybody has to know everything, my whole history in a way, But it is cool. Once in a while, I talk to somebody like you, and then that's awesome. Of course, it's really that makes me think as well, about things. That's cool.
Yeah, well, a great career, a long career, and long may you continue to perform. I'm going to try to get to your gig here at the Tivoli. There's no doubt about that. I'll try to get out there. It's just so hard to get out with kids and work, and I'm also, playing music on the weekends and stuff as well. So I've always got to check. And usually bands' gigs that I want to go to coincide with the gig that I'm playing at myself. So, but mate, if I'm there, I'm going to raise a beer in your honour. Put it that way.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate
no worries. Yeah.
Appreciate the talk, appreciate the chat, appreciate the opportunity, and take care, mate, and I'll talk to you soon.
What a fantastic conversation there. Like I mentioned in the introduction there, I felt like Michael was prepared to give me some more time, but I had to jet off and take care of family stuff. All the parents out there, I'm sure, will understand. But hopefully I have another conversation and we can reprise many of the topics and dive even deeper. Now, if you loved that chat, there are many more just like it over at scarsandguitars.com, and if you like listening, maybe you like reading, because I've written a book, click on the link in the banner on my website, you'll be taken to a marketplace of your choice, in fact, and you can download a sample. If you download the sample and you complete the purchase, not only do I appreciate it, but do hit me up because I want to thank you personally. And I've got some more information to share with you about the book in the moment. But before I do, my name's Andrew Mackay-Smith and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. Until next time, it's a very goodbye for now.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
You know, if you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, you know, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not going to be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, you know, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very, very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
You know, my name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.